Welcome to TAO Dog Yoga. I'm Steph. This is my dog River. And for our practice, we will be focusing on the most important yoga pose for our dogs in this practice, and that is table or plank pose. We will first dive into our own yoga and we'll move through table pose ourselves, transitioning into plank pose to see how it lands in our bodies, how it challenges our core, and then we'll move into practicing with our dogs, and it does just the same for them. So let's get started. Come to your mat. You can ask your dog to lay down right beside you, or you can allow your dog to move about your space while you're practicing yoga. Transitioning right into tabletop, you're gonna come to your mat. You can take your hands and place them right underneath your shoulders so that your hands are in line with your arms and with your shoulders. And then check out your knees. You'll want to walk them back just a little bit so they're directly under your hips and about hip distance apart. Your feet can be curved under if that's comfortable in your body, or the tops of your feet can be resting into your mat. Setting up in our table. So when we think about table for us, we think about being really square and even with all of the angles of our joints and our body. The same goes for our dogs. So here you can take your hands and spread them a little bit wider as well. Shifting your weight forward into your hands, you're going to feel your whole body shift forward a little bit, into your arms. Feeling your hands evenly pressing down, start to really press down into your mat. Notice how when you do that, it activates your arms and even into your shoulders and the tops of your shoulder blades and your upper back. Feeling that energy. And then same for your knees, shins, and feet. Press those down as well. So you're pressing firmly into your mat. Notice what your core does. Your core starts to activate and come alive a little bit here. You can even bring more emphasis into your core, into your center, by drawing your lower belly, the space just below your belly button, in even more. Notice as you do that, that your spine goes straight. Your gaze can be down between your hands or slightly in front. And then we're going to breathe here. Let's take 3 breaths together. Take a deep inhale. And exhale, let it out. Good. Keep pressing actively into the ground. Feel your core engage. Yeah, a little bit of a warm up here. Breathe in and out. Good. Continuing to press down into your mat even more so you can really feel yourself lifting away from your mat. There's lots of energy in your arms and your legs and into your core. One last breath here. In and out. Good. And then you can soften some of that pressing in. You can bend your elbows a little bit. Shift your hips back slightly. And notice that feeling when you do that. Your core relaxes a little bit here. We'll next transition into plank pose in our bodies. So when you're moving into your table, it comes from your core, right? You're drawing everything in, hi River, inward, and you're pressing everything away. So your body's really energized there. When we move into working with our dogs, we want to kind of have the same idea with them, is that their feet are underneath their shoulders and their hips and nice and square and even. So we'll go through that in just a moment. But thinking about how that lands in our body, nice and square, really centering into our core, we'll be doing the same with our dogs. The reason I want to invite a plank pose in is because for our dogs, when they come into table, or I also consider it a plank pose for them, there isn't really any difference, but there is a difference in our bodies. So when our dogs are coming into a table, when we feel our core, they're actually feeling it more like somewhere between a table and a plank. So there's a little bit more challenging happening. So I want to dive into plank in our bodies just so we can really have a little bit more awareness and recognize how challenging a table pose can be for our dogs. Even though it seems like a really simple pose, for them to hold that for a long time can be really tiring, right? So coming into our plank pose, you're gonna set your hands up the same way. I'm gonna do a little bit of yoga around River. So if your dog is on your mat, you can yoga around them, or you can ask your dog to lay down next to your mat if you like. Taking your hands, again, underneath your shoulders, thinking about all of that alignment. So your hands are underneath your elbows, elbows underneath your shoulders. And then right here, you have a couple options in your plank. You can slide your knees back about 6 inches. You can keep them hip distance apart here. And then you can drop your hips down a little bit. And what you're looking for here is from the top of your head down to your knees is one long line. So if you're finding your hips are dropping down, you'll want to engage your core and draw them back in. Good. And then you can let your head just be an extension of your spine, gazing forward. Notice how you're actively pressing in, just like our table, pressing into your mat, and then draw your core up and in to support yourself here. Using your breath, breathe in and out. Good. Feeling our bodies start to heat up a little bit here, feeling that challenge. If you want a little more, you can curl your toes under and lift your hips. Again, you want that long line of energy. If your hips are starting to drop down, draw them back up and in. If you need a break here, you can just lower your knees back down. Keep activating your core. Let's breathe together for 3. So inhale and exhale. Inviting in any shaking that might happen, inviting in some heat and energy building. Another inhale and let it out. Last one, big, big, big breath. And let it go. Nice and slowly drop your knees down. Let's take a child's pose just to let all that go. Let your hips drop down. Let your forehead come down to your mat. Allow your breath to be deep and even here, releasing all of that effort. If your dog is nearby, you can give them some love. Good. And then shifting back into your table for just a moment. Good. And then you can find a comfortable seat on your mat. Your legs crossed, your legs out in front, or even kneeling. And we'll move into working with our dogs. Noticing that shift in your body. In our TAO dog practice, I always like us to do some breathing, some yoga first to become really present before we work with our dogs, right? As we begin to work with our dogs, we want to move from this calm space where we're moving slowly, we're a little more relaxed. Anytime our dogs are moving through dog yoga, we want them to move slowly, thoughtfully in their bodies. So that's also what you're teaching your dog here. So let's invite our dogs into our practice. You'll want to have some treats or some kibble to work with your dog. So if you have that, you can go ahead. If you need to run and grab that now, you can do that. And just getting a few. Good. You might notice your dog gets really excited. River perked right up when he found that there was going to be some kibble involved. Good. So you just want to get a little handful. And when you're working with your dog in dog yoga, you want them to work on a non-slip surface. So you can invite them right over to your mat, or if you're practicing on a carpet, that can also serve as a non-slip surface. So to begin, I want to get River in the right position on my mat. You can see his feet are off in the back and on the front. So I'm just going to take one little piece of food here, a treat, and I'm going to toss it away and tell him free. That means he can go get it. When he comes back around, I'm going to catch him with a piece of food in this hand. And we're going to lure our dog. So that means they're just following the food onto the mat. I'm going to back up. You can kneel here, or if it's more comfortable to stand with your dog, you can stay standing. When River gets to the mat, I'm going to feed him 1, good, 2, good, 3 pieces while he holds his table, or we can also call this plank for them, pose. Then I'm going to free him up. I'm going to toss a little piece and tell him free. He can go get it. He turns back around, you catch your dog with the piece of food, bring your dog right back to the mat. So he's having trouble getting back on, I'm just going to toss another piece. I'm going to be a little quicker to catch him and lure him back onto the mat. Good. And from here, when you're working with your dog, good, you can feed 3 pieces. Good, 2, 3, and you're going to feed them a little quick at first so that your dog doesn't offer a down or sit in between. Right? So if you've done a lot of training with your dog may be offering other behaviors right now. Good, and then free your dog up. They can follow the treat. This time, have your dog come back. We're going to feed 3 pieces. Checking out your dog's feet underneath them. Are their feet square underneath their shoulders and underneath their hips? So you might notice one foot is a little bit front, one is a little bit back. Thinking of our table, you want to get your dog as square as possible. So let's free up our dogs. This time when you bring them and lure them to the mat, you can bring them there and then try to use your treats. I lost one. To get your dog nice and square. So that might be just bringing it forward just a little bit. Good, and then you can feed 3 pieces. Good. Good. And release. Good, and then invite your dog back over. You can ask your dog to lay down or lure them if they are new to the sit, stand, or down or new behaviors. And then let your dog know you're good, take a little break. So for our dogs, when we first start stand, you want them to come in nice and square. So we just took a peek at that. Their feet are evenly spaced under their body, just like in our table. When they're holding this, it's a really strong workout for their core. You know, think about all the times you see your dog doing different things in their everyday. It's not common that we see them standing squarely like we're just practicing because it's really hard for them. It would be like us going around practicing plank all the time. It challenges our body. Just like holding our plank pose, we're gonna build a little bit of duration for our dogs. So when you're first starting, you can do 3 pieces of food a little bit quicker, release your dog. Do that a few times just to get them so they understand to come in and land, almost like with their feet right underneath, stand nice and square, they land, and then you free them up. What we're gonna invite in is a little bit more duration. So think about holding your table or even your plank pose a little bit longer. So when our dogs come in, we'll use 3 pieces of food, but we're gonna start to slow it down just a little bit. If you're finding that you can't go too slow because you're just starting, maybe it's 5 pieces of food initially to build duration. And as your dog continues to practice this, you just space those pieces of food out more and more and more. You can work up to 30 seconds with your dog as they hold this, up to a minute, right? But we wanna do little bits and grow that over weeks of time, right? So you might start here with your dog every day and then advance it as you go. So let's add in a little bit more duration by slowing our food down. You can reload, you get a little handful of kibble or treats. All right, and then to get your dog away from you, you can free them up. Good, 1 treat right on your dog's nose. Getting them back into their stand, nice and square as possible. Good, and then you can feed 1. You're gonna start to slow your food down a little bit. 2, good, 3, good, and then free your dog up. Good. So this can be really challenging if your dog is excited by food, right? Yeah. So if your dog's really excited, you can feed 5 pieces. So maybe they're not as slow as I'm feeding River. Ideally, you want your dog to just stay in that position. Good. So you can feed a little bit more. Stay. Stay. Good. River loves food. Stay. Good. And you can remind your dog to even stay, right, if they know that. Good. And then free your dog up. Good. And then ask your dog to come back to your mat. And you can just lure your dog into a down, or you can ask them to lay down beside you. Good job. Some nice praise for your dog for a job well done. Good boy. And then asking your dog to lay back down with you. You may notice after you brought some treats into your yoga picture that your dog wants to be a little more excited, and that's super normal with our dogs. Awesome. So that's plank pose, table pose for us, and table and plank for our dogs. And why it is so important in a TAO dog yoga practice is this is the foundation we move from. So we start our dogs in a stand, and from there we have infinite possibilities with the amount of yoga we can do with them. Having them be really confident in that stand, so you're going to build core strength with your dog, confidence in their body, teaching them to move thoughtfully in their bodies. This helps with puppies who are developing, helps to keep senior dogs mobile, and for a dog like River who's middle-aged but very active, it helps to prevent injuries. When he has a nice strong core and he decides to do lots of the wild things he likes to do on our hikes or when we're training, it really helps to keep him safe so he can land properly, and it'll do the same for your dog as well. So thank you all for being here and practicing with us. We will see you again real soon right back here at TAO Dog Yoga.